Welcome back to DS and the DFL studio. Of course, I have to tell you what we have behind us on the set. We have a really great picture from Jonathan Gladding, and it's called Tesson. Of course, that is our Creole word for the cold pods. So I love eating from those. A shame that we don't have them out as much as we do. And also, in front of us, of course, we have a lovely bouquet, or I say an arrangement, a flower arrangement from Garden Gate Flowers. Both companies are situated in Bois d'Arche. And let me just say to you that where you can get the painting, of course, is the inner gallery, and which is where the DFL office is located, and there is actually office space available if you're looking. Here's a quick reminder of our giveaways tonight. Remember, you have to call the studio for a special giveaway. We're going to be doing that shortly, so be alert for that. Reminder of the giveaways tonight. Can you name at least 3 Farron's ice cream flavors that begin with the letter C? And also tell us what are the names of the designers that have made one of the Creole outfits for me, not just tonight, but throughout the month of October. And that you will actually win a CD from Mamai Lakai. All right. So, and also with Farron's area, of course, you're going to get the flavor C of your choice that you have named, one of those at least. All right. So, in the studio, as I said before, we are talking about diabetes, and with me I have David Hippolyte, and I also have Dr. Andrew Matthew, and we're going to be talking very much about it. So I think the first kind of question, before we actually go into what diabetes is perhaps if a gentleman could just give us a little synopsis about yourselves, just to, you know, comfort our viewers that you do know what you're talking about. So, Dr. Matthew.
Okay, I'm a medical practitioner, licensed and registered. I work in the private sector, so I have my own private practice I run. I also work with the Tapi Hospital ER. I work in the public sector, so I work with the polyclinic, Grosse Polyclinic. I also work with the medical school, so I'm a lecturer. And one of my greatest passions is actually health education. So part-time, I do some work with our team called Wellness Innovators. Really, Wellness Innovators is all about creating a culture of health awareness. So as you see me go through this program, you'll again see that it's all about us trying to sensitize people, get them convinced, because we know that people have heard some of the things that we're going to be saying tonight already, but we want to continue to say it and explain it and make sure that the point gets across that, listen, this is something which is serious and people need to pay attention to it.
Okay, thank you, Andre. David.
Well, I think my qualification is, or the main qualification is that I'm both diabetic and hypertensive. And I was the executive manager of the association for about a year. I was also the vice president for the North, because the association had a vice president for the South. I became the executive vice president around 3 months ago, and of course I moved on since then. The association is close to my heart, and diabetes is because my mom was very diabetic, actually, and most of her brothers and sisters, and she died at 37 years old. So I've always taken a keen interest in diabetes. And so the idea is to encourage people to make sure they check themselves so that they don't end up suffering, because some people don't understand that. Some people say, do it, you are go there, don't do it, you are go dead. But at the end of the day, the suffering in between is really what you have to be mindful of. I also tell people that you want to live a good life, again, free of suffering, but a life with your children, comfortable with your children and the rest of your family. So why go through hell if you can avoid that?
Okay, very good words, viewers. I hope that you've listened and you're going to do something about it. So let's go to the first question then. Andre, what is diabetes?
So diabetes is a medical term which essentially refers to excessive urination. So diabetes can be divided into 2 types: diabetes mellitus, diabetes insipidus. So diabetes insipidus is where the urine has no taste.
Is that the one we say type 1? Because people say type 1, type 2.
No, we're not even talking about type 1 and 2
now
yet.
Now you see, I've said that to catch you, so make sure you listen.
Correct.
Okay.
So we talk about diabetes as being, as I said, divided into 2 types. So diabetes insipidus is where the urine has no taste. Okay, so that is not the diabetes that we're talking about tonight. The diabetes we're talking about tonight is diabetes mellitus, which means that the urine, that excessive urination, is actually sweet. It has a taste of honey. And you know, we actually have people in a day like today who will tell you that they taste the urine and they realize it's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So urine which contains sugar is a sign of diabetes mellitus, and that is really this condition which we say is multi organic in its effect. It can really damage different organs and systems throughout the body, and as we go along, I'm sure we'll get into how it does so.
Okay, well, I mean, I think the obvious question is, why does it happen then? How do you get it, and why does it happen?
Very good. So diabetes can be classified into different types. So, in the past we used to talk about juvenile diabetes and adult onset. Now we talk about diabetes as being type 1 and 2. Now the differentiation is simple. Somebody who has diabetes type 1 is somebody who cannot produce insulin. So let's just talk about why is insulin so important in this whole condition. You take something into your system, it ends up in your stomach, okay, it gets digested, ends up in your small intestines, then in your large intestines, it gets absorbed. All those nutrients get into your bloodstream, okay? But to be used by your tissues, it has to cross from your bloodstream into the tissues and into the cells of those tissues. Now, to permit or to control the passage of sugar from the blood to your tissues, you need insulin. So insulin actually controls the passage of sugar into your tissues. All right, so what does that mean? It means that if you don't have adequate production or secretion of insulin, then you can actually have the food which enters your bloodstream not being used because it's not being allowed to cross from your bloodstream into the tissues. So what happens to that excessive food, or that food which has been broken down into sugar and is in your bloodstream? It gets excreted as sweet urine. It gets excreted in your urine. So it's all about the insulin, whether or not your body, first of all, produces the insulin in type 1. We say that there is an autoimmune disorder which causes it. So these people generally are less younger than 30 will start to manifest symptoms of diabetes type 1, where they will have destruction of the cells of the islets of Langerhans in the pancreas, which produce insulin. Mm-hmm. So in simple terms, they're not able to produce the insulin that they need. Okay, and that's different from type 2, which is the other broad type, which generally occurs later on in life. In most cases from 60 onwards, but we're seeing a trend of people who are actually having type 2 diabetes younger than that. Mm-hmm. So in type 2 diabetes now, it's not so much a problem of not being able to secrete the insulin or produce the insulin, but it's more a problem of your tissues actually being able to use it, because those same passages which the insulin controls, the passages do not respond to the insulin as they should. So insulin is supposed to attach itself to a receptor and allow the passages to open so the sugar can get into your tissues. But in the case of these type 2 diabetics, who are generally the older diabetics, that passage is not being opened as it should. So they're secreting insulin, but the passage is not working. The communication between the insulin and the passage is not as it should be. And in some cases, the insulin might actually drop. Now, to make it even clearer, just for people who may be type 2, who may be told that they were type 2 and be on insulin, they may be wondering, but why am I on insulin if I'm a type 2 diabetic? It's really a designation. Type 1 is really a designation for somebody who absolutely needs insulin for them to survive. So a type 2 diabetic does not necessarily need to be given insulin to survive, although for better control, a type 2 diabetic may be placed on insulin later on. A type 1 diabetic must use insulin in order to survive.
Okay, let me ask David, what type do you have?
Type 2.
Okay, and when did you discover that you had it, and what's it been like?
Okay, well, I actually discovered in 2009. Before 2009, a little earlier, I used to test all the time because my mother, as I said, and her brothers and sisters, her father, they had diabetes. But unfortunately, I stopped. I stopped going to do the testing, which is very crucial actually, and I must say that to your viewers, because a lot of people don't go to do the testing, or don't go to test, to screening. They have to be screened. What we found is that quite a lot of people get to find out they have diabetes or hypertension only when they drop, you know, or when they have some, you know, of the major symptoms, like something like peripheral neuropathy, where your nerves are damaged, you know, in your legs or maybe your hands. Okay. Now, so I found out in 2009, and again, I found, although I did the testing before, I used to go frequently, but at that point I found out when I went for another condition, I went to the doctor for another condition, and so I was told that I was both diabetic and hypertensive at that same time.
What's the difference?
Well, diabetes is excess or low blood sugar, okay, whereas hypertension is high blood pressure. So it's high blood sugar and high blood pressure. Then you have hypertension and hypotension and hyperglycemia hypoglycemia,
That's right.
high and low in both cases. Okay, so when the doctor told me, I was, oh my God, you know, I expected this. As I said, my mother had that from time immemorial, and you know, but I didn't care for myself enough, and continued, you know, I didn't continue to do the screening, so at least I could have caught it earlier. But what really alarmed me, I think, that day with the doctor is that he said, you know, if you don't take care of yourself, you may get kidney damage. And I was like, okay. And so he said, well, you know, the thing about the kidneys is that, you know, they can take a lot. They take a lot of blows. You see, they're like the garbage trucks of the body. They can, you know, keep garbage, keep taking out garbage from the body and so on. He said, but, you know, the day you actually see kidney problems reflected in your results after doing tests, it's when they really have gone bad, so and there's no going back, you know. So that really alarmed me, and I thought, oh my God, well, you know, that's like a death sentence. But the good news is that diabetes is not a death sentence,
That's right,
you know.
right.
And so after that, of course, I started taking medication, and one day I actually dropped. I fell. I was at a function, and I just fell. Fortunately, when it was at a function where there was the Red Cross medical team, and guess who was the doctor in attendance?
What a coincidence.
Wow.
So then I was rushed to the hospital and so on. And so I went on after that, and then I went to see my main doctor, who was Dr. Martin Didier. And we did some work. And after about a year, he told me that I actually had another attack, and I dropped again. In fact, the day when I dropped, Dr. Matthew said both my blood pressure and my blood sugar were low. And I suppose I was taking too much extra care, so because I was exercising like crazy and trying to do all the things that you're supposed to do. And when it happened to me a second time, Dr. D.A. told me, well, look, my body is saying that the medication is resisting the medication. Well, it wants to say that the medication is not necessary. And so I have not been on the medication since. That was in 2010. So for the past 2 years, I've not been on the medication.
But you've been checking?
Yes, oh yes, I do. I have my own blood pressure monitor, and I have my blood sugar monitor as well.
Good.
So
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, viewers, it's not just a matter of hearing this. All right, it has happened to David, but it could very easily happen to you, or it might be happening to you right now, and you're avoiding the signs. You really have to do something about it. And also, in David's case, he knew better, but was comfortable. That could be you too. When we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more, and this is the time to send us your questions if you have any questions. So this is Dolor Factor Live on, of course, DBS. We'll be right back.